Good afternoon, all my money makers and power players. Welcome to the T-shirt transfer paper Power Half Hour, brought to you by Condi Systems Incorporated. My name is Doug DeWitt. I'm your host for today's show. Thank you very much for attending. In today's episode, we are going to do a side-by-side comparison of a transfer paper well known in the market made by Neenah TECHNI-PRINT called Technoprint EZP. What we're going to do is we're going to pit it up against two of our very own transfer papers, our LaserMPrints CL and our LaserMPrints HW, and we're going to compare them side by side to see which is the better paper. Okay, so good episode for you today. Hope you stay tuned. In the meantime, we have to carry on the tradition here at the T-shirt transfer paper Power Half Hour, which is paying the power bill. First thing I want to tell you about is our Condi virtual open house. Registration is now open, okay? So if you want to sign up for informative classes from an all-star lineup of presenters, register. If you want to take advantage of specials that are only going to be available, register. If you want to win valuable prizes, register. Go to our website, www.condi.com or ditrans.com, and click on the virtual open house logo and register. Speaking of, here at Condi, we always try to promote our educational webinars, but this week I am going to take part in an educational webinar hosted by Neenah TECHNI-PRINT. It is going to be Tuesday on the 29th at 9 o'clock Central Time. The topic is called Every Choice Counts, and it's going to be hosted by Charlie Myers from Neenah Paper. Now, I'm going to sit in on this webinar as a panelist, but what we're basically going to discuss is the durability issues involving T-shirt transfers. So if you've had any questions about durability or washability of your digitally decorated products, it's definitely a good webinar to attend. We'll get the link information on our Facebook and other social media so you can go ahead and register. But again, that is going to be next Tuesday, the 29th, starting at 9 a.m. Now, of course, we're still running our Cool Your Jets promotion here at Condi, which means coupons and discounts off of specially marked items. Do we have art packs, Rodeo Bo? Rodeo Bo is shaking his head yes. Rodeo Bo is sitting in for Space Monkey Sprite, who is out today. Hope you're feeling better soon, Sprite. But Rodeo Bo is doing a heck of a job in your absence. Okay, and of course, last thing we got to do, got to talk about it. The Road to Sublimation Success, co-authored by our very own David Gross. Now, I'm sure many of the smart watchers out there on this program have already bought their copy of The Road to Sublimation Success, and they're using it to achieve great things. Well, you know what? Your copy is probably worn out by now, maybe frayed at the edges because all the digging you've been doing through it. So go ahead and get another. They're available through Condi 1C, which is 8.5 by 11 inch, 100 sheets, or LMP 1117C. We're also going to showcase our LaserMPrints HW, which stands for heavyweight. That part number is LM45-8511C for 8.5 by 11, or -1117C for 11 by 17. And finally, we're going to compare those two to what I would consider to be the reigning champion of the solid sheet emulsion transfer paper for laser printers, the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP. If you want to order through Condi, our part numbers start 9868PO-8511C for 8.5 inch by 11 inch 100 sheets, or 1117C for 11 inch by 17 inch 100 sheets. So those are the part numbers that you need to know. If you need additional information, make sure to check our links in our long description. They'll take you right to those products with the write-ups. But the first thing that we're going to do here on the Paper Power Half Hour is we're going to put these papers through a printer test. Now, the printer I have here is the Hewlett-Packard Color LaserJet Pro M452DN. And the reason that we're using this particular laser printer is because, in my opinion, it represents what I would consider to be your desktop 4-color process color laser printer. The type of printer that you could go out and get at Walmart, Office Max, Staples, locations like those, easily order it offline, have one of those bulk delivery companies ship it right to your door. But the point is that we're going to see if we can run these professional grade transfer papers through this laser printer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and queue up a couple of transfers here. The first set I'm going to attempt to run is the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP. Now, what I'm doing here when I go to print, a couple of settings that I want to make sure that I have selected when I go into the driver of this HP. It has an option for cardstock or heavy media. I'm going to go ahead and select that. When it comes to my paper source, I want to make sure that it's pulling from the manual tray or tray 1 in this case. And when it comes to the paper type, they have an option called extra heavy, which they designate as between 130 to 170 grams per square meter media weight. So I'm going to go ahead and select that because most transfer papers should fall within that realm. Okay, let me go ahead and apply these changes. Hit the print button. And I'm just going to step around real quick just to make sure my printer is on and not in sleep mode. Yeah, let's make sure it is woke. All right, so we've got our HP laser printer. Looks like it should be receiving the data soon, and we'll go ahead and crank out these prints. Now, when it comes to running the next paper in our test, which is going to be the Conde LaserMPrints CL, this is actually our second version of what we call CL paper. Anybody who's familiar with the history of Neenah Coldenhove knows that before the EZP product was developed, they had a paper that they called 4.0. Now, one thing I loved about 4.0 was it had a very thin, very soft emulsion layer. The downside to it was you were kind of limited in the printers or copiers that you could run the paper through. So essentially, what Neenah decided to do with the EZP formulation was to make the formulation as universal as they possibly could, meaning being able to run it through a wide variety of inexpensive color laser printers or color laser copiers. Okay, so we got those prints to come out. Let me go ahead and see if I can attempt to run our LaserMPrints CL using the exact same settings as the Technoprint EZP, which is telling our HP we're running cardstock or heavy media and selecting our paper type as extra heavy. Again, that's about 130 to 175 grams per square meter. So we'll go ahead and send this set of prints through, see if we can get them. In the meantime, let me pull these off just to show you some of the graphics we're going to be working with today. Got this kicking one right here, barnacle bills. We've got one of my favorites. It's a happy birthday with rainbows and unicorns and dragons. And then this photograph right here. So basically we're going to do some line art graphics, we're going to do some vector art graphics, and we're going to do some photographic reproductions using these papers today. So, getting back to the LaserMPrints CL, what I like about the CL is it mimics that old 4.0 formulation. It's going to have a softer hand. It is going to apply a little bit faster than the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP. The catch is you're definitely going to have to do some testing in your particular printer or copier to make sure that the paper will feed properly, which is what we're doing right now. So as you can see, I'm feeding the paper from the bypass or multi-purpose tray, and I'm running 3 transfers. So I've got various degrees of coverage, but the last, which is the photographic output of the butterflies, that should be my heavy coverage print. So what I'm looking for is, if I take the last print and I trace my fingertip over it, that no toner is coming off on my bare fingertip. If that's the case, that means the toner has properly bonded to the emulsion layer of the transfer sheet, and we should be good to go. All right, so that's 2 papers down. Well, there is a third paper, LaserMPrints HW, or heavyweight paper. Again, this is a paper that's specifically designed for applying to thicker fabric materials, such as hoodie or sweatshirt material, maybe a canvas bag, materials such as those. So it may not necessarily be a fair comparison to put it up against these 2 papers that were designed to apply to t-shirts, but we're going to go ahead and do it anyway. But in earlier testing with our Hewlett-Packard model here, we noticed a significant amount of toner scatter trying to feed the paper through, which basically tells me that the paper is just a little too thick to run through these desktop printers. So what we did was we turned to our old tried and trusted Oki Pro 9541 WT. Yes, I took 40 cent a sheet transfer paper and ran it through my $13,649 white toner laser printer. I even turned the white toner off because for demonstration purposes, we don't need it per se. We just needed the 4 process colors. But basically, to let you know, the heavyweight paper ran through the 9541 WT like a champ. This is a paper that's designed for what I would call professional model series color laser printers. In other words, printers specifically designed for running transfers, like your Oki white toner series or your Oki Pro color series. It can also run through your bigger color laser printers and color laser copiers, the ones that run at high speed, because it runs at such a heavy media weight. Now, like I said, it has a slightly thicker emulsion, so it is going to feel a little heavier on the garment. But having that heavier emulsion may lead to better saturation. We'll see when we go to the next phase of our testing, which is testing the transfers out on the heat press. So I've got my George Knight DK20S swing away heat press set up at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to use the same temperature to apply all 3 transfer papers because they all call for 375 or within that median temperature range. As far as the times are concerned, the times are going to vary by about 5 seconds going from paper to paper. So we're going to start with the paper that takes the longest time, move our way down to the paper that takes the shortest amount of time to apply. Also, what we're going to do is, since we're doing real world testing, when we remove our backing sheet, we're going to use a non-stick silicone sheet to help set the emulsion in the design. Now, when it comes to these 3 particular papers, using a finishing sheet is not necessarily a requirement. So you don't have to purchase silicone sheets when you buy these transfer paper products. However, it is recommended that you do it, and we'll explain as we get into the testing. But we've got our heat press set up, so we're going to go ahead and test with our first paper, which is going to be the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP. So let me reach over to my stack here and grab a test shirt. For testing purposes, I'm going to be using a Hanes Beefy Tee 100% cotton t-shirt. So let's run through this as if we were actually making a decorated garment for sale. We're going to swing the press out. We're going to go ahead and dress our t-shirt on the heat press. Make sure we square it up as best we can. Make sure there are no wrinkles underneath. Otherwise, when we pre-press it, it may create a fold that we can't get out. Also, remember to use your sticky lint roller to remove any particles, because any trapped particles, if emulsion is applied over it, it almost magnifies the mistake, so to speak. But now that we have our shirt stretched, lint rolled, I'm going to go ahead and do a pre-press. I'm just going to let the platen fall down for about 5 to 10 seconds just to drive out any moisture. As long as I don't see steam jetting out of the side, we should be good to go. So we got a nice flat surface to work with here. So let's go ahead and find that Technoprint EZP in the happy birthday graphic. So let's move over to the press. I'm going to show you how to do it here. Okay, so I've got my shirt prepped. I'm going to place the design where I want it to appear. Square it up as best I can. Now you'll notice I don't have any kind of Teflon sheet. I could use a protective sheet, but with single sheet self-weeding papers, you could just come straight down with the heat press. Now we're pressing at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 seconds with what I would call heavy pressure. Now, the secret to using this is when we lift the press, the instructions from Neenah recommend that you wait 7 to 10 seconds to allow the design to cool. What we're going to do is we're going to go a bit longer than that. We're going to go about 25 to 30 seconds before we remove the backing sheet. And the reason is just to make sure that that polymer grabs hold. One thing that we can do as we are letting our t-shirt cool down is we can start picking at the corner, so to speak. And what I'm basically judging for is the tension, okay? If I feel a lot of tension in that corner edge, well then I'm just going to wait another 5-10 seconds to allow the design to cool. But what you will notice is as you start to peel that backing sheet, the tension should reduce as the backing sheet is essentially ready to release. So let's give it another try here. Oh, that feels better. And we want to peel in a smooth, steady motion. Now, one thing that you might notice here, and I want to hold it up to our zoom camera, might be a little difficult to tell, but here in these areas, I've got a little bit of yellow backgrounding. Thank you, Bo. Basically, what can happen is when you're using standard 4-color process laser printers, it depends on the toner formulation of the unit that you're using, but some toners have a tendency to essentially sublimate against the backing sheet. So if you see a little bit of yellow toner residue on your backing sheet, don't be alarmed. If you see a lot of yellow residue on your backing sheet, what it probably means is you need to increase your temperature or your pressure on your next attempt. If you see other colors on the backing sheet besides the yellow, then you might have an issue, and at that point I would recommend getting in touch with technical support. But now that we have our design down, like I said, I'm going to take the extra step of covering with a nonstick silicone sheet, and I'm going to apply with the silicone sheet for an additional 15 seconds. Now what I'm trying to do is to help drive that emulsion into the fabric. It should make our design a little softer. And also what we can do, let me go ahead and remove that. While this shirt is hot, we can give it a pop from side to side. This helps reduce the hand or feel. Now, Bo, if you would please, give me an overhead shot. Okay, so here we have designs, same design, on 3 different transfer papers. This is the one that just came out of the press. This is the Technoprint EZP. Now, looking at it compared to the LaserMPrints HW, it might be a little difficult for the camera to pick this up, but what I can tell you looking over these 2 designs is there's definitely a bit more saturation when it comes to the HW transfer paper. Okay, and that's to be expected. Like I said, it's a slightly thicker emulsion layer and it can hold more toner. However, when you compare the feel of the HW to the Technoprint EZP, the EZP definitely has it beat when it comes to feel. Now, let's compare the print to the LaserMPrints CL. Okay? Looking at both, I would say in this case, the Technoprint EZP has a better saturation than the LaserMPrints CL down here. Again, having to do with the thickness of the emulsion layer. The EZP is what I'd consider to be middle of the road, so to speak, as far as thickness. But the LaserMPrints CL definitely has a much softer feel. Now, in this particular case, since both of these prints, or actually these 2 here and here, came off the exact HP printer, like I said, if you want a little bit better saturation, go with the EZP. If you want a thinner hand, try the LaserMPrints CL. But again, you might have to do some adjustment to your image to get this to match this as far as color saturation is concerned. All right. So we went ahead and used the Technoprint EZP. let's figure out how to use our Condi brand papers now. And we're going to start off with the LaserMPrints CL, I believe. I do believe that's right, Rodeo Bo, but while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to go ahead and grab another t-shirt. Again, Hanes Beefy Tee, 100% cotton. Let's run through the same scenario, shall we? Go ahead, dress the press, flatten out, make sure there are no folds. Use a sticky lint roller, which is what we call this down south in beautiful Mobile, Alabama. Make sure there are no contaminants in the area under the press. Let's go ahead and drop the platen down and do at least a 5-second pre-press. Now that it's summer, you might see a little bit more steam coming out of your t-shirts than you normally would. If that's the case, keep pre-pressing until that steam stops. Basically, you want as dry of an area as you can to do your transfer. Now, some people claim that that might slightly discolor the cotton, but what you got to understand is cotton's a very absorbent material. So if that shirt sits out for a couple of hours, basically the moisture absorbs back into the cotton fibers. You really don't see the discoloration at all. So works out pretty sweet. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do this butterfly graphic, which is already popular with the guys back in print services. We'll go ahead and position the transfer where we want it to appear. And again, just like the EZP, make sure there's no Teflon on your top platen. We could use a cover sheet, but not necessary. We're going to go at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, but we're only going to hit it for 15 seconds. We're still using the heavy pressure. Now, one secret to using the CL is if you can apply a little bit more pressure than heavy, go ahead and do it. But understand, people have their limitations. So you want to work with a heavy pressure, but not so heavy you're wearing yourself out trying to do lots and lots of shirts. Now, when it comes to the backing sheet, we want to peel the backing sheet as soon as we possibly can. And again, let me go ahead and get a close-up on this, Bo. Thank you. As you can see, a little bit of residual yellow there in the backing sheet. What that tells me is there's a little bit of sublimation going on with the HP toner from this printer. But like I said, it's nothing unusual, nothing to panic about, so to speak. Now on the press, I do notice a little bit of rough edge here where there was area of no print. That's where a silicone sheet comes in handy. Because basically, if the transfer itself makes any kind of texture or feel, we can easily take it out by doing a finishing press with a silicone sheet. Use the same temperature that you would normally use to apply the transfer. You only have to go half the time. So in this case, I really only need to go about 10 seconds. Let's go ahead and pull this sheet off. Well, that's looking pretty darn good. And while it's still warm, gently stretch from side to soften the hand or the feel. So, like I said, this is LaserMPrints CL, and let's compare it directly with the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP. You giving me a good overhead shot, Bo? Thank you, my man. All right, looking at the two here, as far as the color is concerned, I would say they are pretty darn close when it comes to color saturation. Again, this design we prepped, hit with the silicone sheet earlier. It has a soft enough feel. I mean, you could feel that solid film, but it still feels good. This does have a slightly lighter texture, the LaserMPrint CL, but then again, it also has like a bit more of what I would call a grain feel to it, almost like you can feel the fabric coming through the design, so to speak. Now, it will be interesting when it comes to wash durability, because generally speaking, the more embedded the design is onto the fabric, the better your washing and drying results should be. Now, directly comparing these two papers that are from our Condi line, the LaserMPrint CL here, the LaserMPrints 4.0 here, or pardon me, LaserMPrints HW. Lots of different papers and I'm getting them confused, I apologize. Okay, let's do this again. LaserMPrint CL, LaserMPrints HW. Looking at the two prints here, you definitely notice the saturation difference with this HW formulation. Again, we're going back to using a thicker emulsion layer. So having that thicker emulsion layer, we're obviously able to trap more of the toner. But then again, this particular print didn't come off of a different printer. It came off of a 9541, where this came off of the HP. Now, if you were selling this shirt in two different locations, who's going to notice the difference? But if you were selling these two shirts side by side on the same rack, there is a definite difference. So basically what we're learning here is the heavier the emulsion, the better the saturation, the more intense the saturation. But for that extra saturation, what you're trading off is a heavier feel, as opposed to the LaserMPrint CL, which from a color quality standpoint is right there with the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP, but like I said, just a little bit softer. Okay, so that's LaserMPrint CL. We've got one more paper to go, and we are going to work with the LaserMPrints HW, and we're going to work with our graphic here, basically our Barnacle Bill graphic. So let me go ahead and grab my pre-prints that I did off of our Oki 9541 WT. So there's the design there. Let me grab one more t-shirt. Here we go. Go ahead and put it on the press. Square it up. Make sure there are no folds. I see some contaminants. I'm going to use my sticky lint roller. They're only $1. They will save you a lot of heartache. Okay. Let's go ahead. Give it the pre-press. Again, we want to pre-press for at least 5 seconds. Depending on how much humidity is in your environment at the moment, might have to be more. As long as no steam's jetting out, we're good. Let's go ahead and take our design, position it where we want it, and I'll let you get a close-up on this one, Bo. So we're going to go for 375 Fahrenheit. Just like the Technoprint EZP, just like the LaserMPrint CL, we're only going for 20 seconds. Unlike the LaserMPrint CL, where we could peel the backing sheet immediately, when it comes to this paper, we're going to have to kind of treat it like we did the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP, which is we got to give it some time to cool. And again, I'm doing the old pick at the back trick. When I start to feel a little less tension, then I'll go ahead and grab. Now, to note here, if we were working with a thicker fabric material that is more heat absorbent, then we might have to peel the backing sheet faster than what we would for, let's say, like a t-shirt. But given the fact that there are so many thicknesses and so many different materials out there, you'll just have to kind of experiment on your own. But as far as what these papers have in common, all three of these papers are designed to image white and light colored garments. All three of these papers are designed to work with cotton or cotton poly blends, I would say up to about a 50-50. And because they're solid film emulsion sheets, they'll pretty much work with any type of art file that you're using. So it could be something that's like a line design. It could be a clip art design. It could be something vectorized, like the graphic that we're working with here. Or it could be photographic output. It really doesn't matter when we're talking about a solid emulsion film. Now, like I said, getting into the differences or the nuances between the papers, like I said, when it comes to the Technoprint EZP, I think the benefit of it is essentially a jack of all trades, so to speak. We can go on lighter materials, we can go on thicker materials, we can also go through a wide variety of color laser printers and color laser copiers, okay? When it comes to the LaserMPrints CL, from what I've been observing, the LaserMPrints CL definitely has a softer hand or feel than the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP. Also, being able to apply at 15 seconds as opposed to 20, 25 seconds and immediately peel. If we're talking about doing dozens or hundreds of the same design at the time, those extra seconds start to add up. So the LaserMPrints CL will give you a slightly faster production. I think the trade-off is you lose a little bit of color saturation. Now, looking at the LaserMPrints HW here, compared to both the Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP and the LaserMPrints CL, like I said, it's that thicker emulsion layer. That thicker emulsion layer is basically going to maximize the color saturation that you're going to get out of your transfers. So basically, if you want the most colorful transfer, that would be the LaserMPrints HW. But like I said, the trade-off is going to be, it's going to be a much thicker or heavier emulsion. So it will basically feel heavier on the garment, but it'll also take longer to break down in the washer and dryer. So if you're working with thicker fabric materials, it might be a good option for you. Okay, so that basically concludes our demonstration on Neenah TECHNI-PRINT EZP versus LaserMPrints CL and LaserMPrints HW. Now remember, when it comes to our LaserMPrints lines of transfer papers, because it's a Conde brand, we do offer a 100% product guarantee. So if you wanted to try these papers, please contact your account manager or go online and order you a pack and do so. Definitely encourage it. Now, before we get going, just a few points I want to cover. If you have any questions regarding the content that we've covered in today's episode of the T-shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour, make sure to hit up our inbox, TTPPHH@conde.com. Also, don't forget to like the T-shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour on YouTube, Facebook. Make sure you comment, hashtag it, emoji it, whatever. Just give us some props because we'd like to continue to do the show. And also, remember to tune in 2 weeks for our next edition of the T-shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour, where we will be giving you a sneak peek into our Conde virtual open house. Hopefully I'll have some special guest stars that will appear with me on the show. We'll give you a preview of everything that's going to be involved with that big event coming soon. But until next time, I'm Doug DeWitt, your T-shirt Transfer Paper Product Manager here at Conde Systems. My time is up, and I